Kerem Shalom border crossing to Gaza. We're here now blocking the supply trucks coming in at a time when we're being targeted, when terrorists from Gaza are trying to murder us, when they're setting incendiary balloons, when they're storming the border. We are still providing supplies to Gaza, supplies to build, supplies to essentially destroy us and to murder us, and we're here saying enough is enough. As you can see in the sign, it says simply, if there is terrorism, there are no supplies, and that's exactly what we're here. We're sending a message. We got people here who've been up since 3 o'clock in the morning. We're here blocking the supply trucks, again, sending a simple message. If there is terrorism from Gaza, there is no supplies. It is absurd that we are supplying our enemy. We are bringing supplies, construction materials, electronics, wood, fuel, diesel, everything. We're supplying our enemies with the means to murder us. And let me remind you that on Monday, this Monday, Egypt announced that it was blocking its border crossing with Gaza because of all the terrorism. So when you have Egypt understanding that terrorists should not be rewarded, we unfortunately here in Israel, we're still rewarding terrorism by allowing all these supplies to come in every day. There are hundreds and hundreds of trucks coming to Gaza to bring supplies. Now, there's a famous Jewish saying that whoever is merciful to the cruel will end up being cruel to the merciful. And that's exactly what's going on here. We're being cruel to our enemies who are seeking to murder us on a daily basis. We have an IDF soldier right now, Barel Shmueli, who was critically wounded on Saturday, lying in the hospital right now. And as we're letting these supply trucks in, as these supply trucks are trying to come into the Gaza Strip and giving them more means, more materials to try to murder us. Again, we have an IDF soldier who on Saturday at the violent border riot by terrorists was critically wounded. He was shot in the head by a terrorist, Barel Shmueli. And at the same time, when Egypt closed their border crossing with Gaza, we here are letting our border is open and we are allowing supplies in. Now, just to understand how absurd this is, as everybody knows, in 2005 we unilaterally disengaged with Gaza. But for some reason, we are still allowing on a daily basis hundreds and hundreds of trucks to come and supply Gaza. Now, people always say that the Gaza border is sieged. That Gaza is sieged, Israel has an obligation to provide them supplies. But that's not true. Because Israel doesn't siege Gaza, because Gaza shares a border with Egypt. So why don't all the people who laud human rights, who think human rights is so important, why don't they pressure Egypt to bring in all the supplies? Why should Israel, who unilaterally disengaged in Gaza, be obligated to supply our enemies? Again, this is a terrorist entity that is trying to actively murder Israelis. Right now, they are storming the border, they are sending incendiary balloons to burn our field, to destroy our agriculture, and we're allowing supplies in, thousands and thousands of tons of supplies, of construction material, of things that they use essentially to murder us, to build terror tunnels, to dig under us, to try to kidnap our civilians, to murder our soldiers. So as you can see here, we are now here at the Kerem Shalom border crossing to Gaza, saying if there is terror, as you can see in the sign, if there is terrorism, there are no supplies. We are not going to allow these supplies here. There are trucks waiting on line. There are more trucks that are going to be coming soon. The trucks are coming. They want to go ahead and they want to get to the border crossing, but we're not letting them. We're here to say enough is enough. Enough is enough. We're going to stop supplying our enemies with the means to murder us. Enough is enough. Again, we are supplying them with the means to make rockets, with the means to create terror tunnels, with the means to create the helium to launch the incendiary balloons. Where do you think they get the helium from? How do they launch all these balloons that are burning up dunams and dunams of Israeli agriculture, and they're destroying our crops? They're causing millions in damages. It's from Israel. Where do they get the supplies to make the terror tunnels? Where do they get the concrete from? Where do they get the metal to make the rockets? Where is this all from? The answer is simple. It's from Israel. It's because we are being merciful to our enemies, and then in turn, we're being cruel to ourselves. We're being cruel to our own civilians. We have an Israeli soldier right now. His name is Barel Shmueli. He is lying in critical condition not far from here in Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba. He was shot on Saturday by a terrorist who came to the Gaza border. There was hundreds of terrorists rioting on the Gaza border trying to breach Israel to murder Israelis, and one of the terrorists shot him in the head, and he is now critically injured, lying in the hospital bed while we are allowing supplies and we are rearming our enemies. We are essentially allowing them to rearm themselves to build materials to murder us, and we're here saying enough is enough. If there is terrorism, there are no supplies. And it's also important to know they also have two of our soldiers, the remains, the bodies of our soldiers, Hagar Golding and Aron Shaul. They're holding them captive along with two Israeli citizens, Evera Megis Ishtu and Hisham al-Sayyad. These are two Israeli citizens that are held captive by Hamas. Hamas has also held captive the remains of two IDF soldiers. Again, think of how sick these people are. Think of how disgusting these people are. They're holding the remains of two IDF soldiers hostage. They're not sending them home to be properly buried. And while they're doing this, we're supplying them with concrete. We're supplying them with metal. We're supplying them with electronics. We're supplying them with wood. We're supplying them with fuel to build and continue their war against Israel. They're now chanting disgrace, disgrace, disgrace. Because it's a disgrace that we are allowing this to happen on a daily basis. On a daily basis, we are allowing tons and tons of supplies to enter Gaza. Again, it's important to understand that in Israel, there is no such thing as a siege. The supposed siege on the Gaza Strip that Israel has is non-existent because Egypt shares a border with Gaza. Where are all the human rights activists calling on Egypt to allow all these humanitarian supplies? Why is Israel, which unilaterally disengaged from Gaza in 2005, responsible to provide our enemies with the means to murder us? Why? It makes no sense. It makes no sense on a logical level. It makes no sense on a moral level. They should be pressuring Egypt because Egypt shares a border with them. And this what you're seeing here, this is absurd. This is a moral travesty that every day we are allowing goods, we are allowing supplies into Gaza and essentially giving our enemies the means to murder us. Again, I'm repeating this over and over again because it's important that everybody understands what's going on here. On a daily basis, you can see the trucks, they have fuel, they have metal, they have electronics, wood, concrete, everything that we're allowed to enter the Gaza Strip, Hamas takes and they use to murder Israelis. Again, don't misunderstand the meaning of supplies to think humanitarian aid. Because who is this aid going to? You think it's reaching the average person in Gaza? No, who do you think is receiving this aid? Again, who do you think is receiving this aid? Who's taking it off the trucks? You think it's just an average worker in Gaza? Of course not. It's Hamas. Hamas controls the Gaza Strip. Hamas is the one that is taking this aid. And it's important to everyone to understand this. And again, right now they're telling us, go ahead and disengage, leave Judea and Samaria, the so-called West Bank, and you'll have peace. That's exactly what they said in Gaza in 2005, and of course we have no peace. We have rockets, we have terrorism. So all the people who are telling you, just give it a chance, give peace a chance in Judea and Samaria, stop building quote-unquote settlements, which are essentially Jewish homes, and you'll have peace. Again, this is nonsense. This is nonsense. Don't believe what they're saying. Just understand this is what we tried in Gaza. And what's going on now is we have terrorists trying to murder us. We have Israel allowing millions of dollars of supplies in on a daily basis in order for these terrorists to continue digging tunnels, to continue making rockets to try to murder us. Alright everybody, whoever is joining us right now, I want to remind you what's going on here. We are now in the Kerem Shalom crossing to Gaza, where these trucks are carrying supplies to rearm our enemies, to provide our enemies with construction materials, with diesel, with gasoline, with electronics, with wood, with cement, with everything that they need to build terror tunnels and make more rockets to attack us. It's important to understand that over the past few days, there have been massive riots from Gaza towards Israel. An IDF soldier, Barash, was shot in his He's critically wounded right now in the hospital, and we're still allowing these supplies while Egypt on Monday closed their border with Gaza. While Egypt is closing their border with Gaza, Israel is still opening its. It is a moral outrage. It is a disgrace that we are allowing supplies to reach our enemies while they are trying to murder us. Again, this is a war. It's important for everybody to understand. It's critical that people understand we are at war. We are at war with the terrorist entity that's trying to murder us. And every day that we allow supplies to come into this, we are essentially giving our enemies more means, a larger ability to try to murder us and to try to kill us. We have to make a clear announcement saying enough is enough. These supplies, if you want these supplies to enter, go through Egypt. Egypt shares a border with Gaza as well. And all the fake humanitarians that really quote-unquote care about human rights, if they really cared, they would go ahead and protest in Egypt. They would go to Egypt and they would protest them to open the border and let all the supplies in. But of course, Egypt closed their border because they realized they don't want Hamas, they don't want the terrorists to get into their borders. And for some reason, we still have all these trucks. Again, this is only a small portion. There's still more to come. These trucks are still coming in and bringing supplies to our enemies. It's absurd. It's absurd, and we're here to say enough is enough. Enough is enough. It's also important for everyone to see that with their own eyes, to see all the trucks coming in, to see all the supplies. You read about it in the news, you don't quite understand the humiliation, how humiliating it is for us to be giving supplies to our enemies while they're actively trying to murder us. Look at these. It's absolutely absurd. Look at all these trucks. It goes farther down. It's just absurd, and this is only, again, a small portion of what goes on every single day, how we resupply our enemies, we give them with the means to murder us.